So I can't resist doing a brief conversation with my friend and sort of neighbor, at least by Maine standards, Carrie Jones, who's over on Mount Desert Island. I'm in Lemoyne, just off the island. You're in Bar Harbor.
I am in Bar Harbor, right in town, actually. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm exploring, why write online? Or first there's, why write? And then, of course, why write online? It feels like, is there any other place to write anymore? But at the same
So
time, it's a
true.
good question to ask. And then get some tips from you for people who might be considering writing on this infernal thing called the internet. So, Carrie, I just want to start with I mean, you write a lot of different things. You've written best-selling books. You write blogs, several different blogs. Your
Yeah.
husband Ron is a news blogger with you on Bar Harbor Story.
Yeah.
So I guess first, just quickly, what drove you to be a writer? I know that's try to keep
Oh,
it short if you can.
how do you like? You can't ask a novelist. It can make that
Yeah,
origin
yeah, yeah.
story short. But basically, it was the only way I found love. It was the only way I got applause, and it was the only way I got my voice out, I guess. Because I have a Muppet voice that I was severely bullied at when I was growing up, and so I found it was safer. I had so much I always wanted to say, but it was safer for me to write it down rather than try to talk with this Muppet voice. And that was how I was heard. Writing was how I was heard.
Yeah. And I assume you started, let's see, the things like Google and Facebook really date from about 20 years ago. So,
Yeah.
um, were you writing before the internet? I don't want to get
Yes.
into your age and stuff like that.
I don't care. I don't have any hangups about age. I just know I am old. The I basically started as a newspaper reporter, a failed poet, then a newspaper reporter, freelancing, and then I became an editor for a small weekly newspaper that no longer exists, just as the internet was starting to like become. And at the same time, I decided to give all that up, get an MFA, and go to Vermont College of Fine Arts to focus on writing for children and young adults. At that time, which was in the around like 2007 or so, um, the internet was blossoming. I'll use a
Yeah.
positive word, blossoming, and LiveJournal was very popular. And so all of my writer friends from Vermont were all on LiveJournal, and so I joined LiveJournal as well. And over there, I let out all my goofy, insecure sides of writer, carry out, and that was kind of my persona. But then I wrote more dark teen novels, which
Mm.
is almost an interesting aspect of the of how you present online and how your product, if you're a novelist or a fiction writer especially, how those might not always connect, and sometimes that's fine, and sometimes other authors have had a really hard time with that. I've been lucky because I always have an undercurrent of quirky because I just can't get rid of that.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's interesting to me how presenting who you are online as a writer, um, when you do multiple different kinds of writing, might not always coalesce perfectly. And so that's a tip I would give people. I think is to think about who you are and how you're presenting online, be it on a live journal or a Substack or on social media, whichever one you use, and whether or not that's going to work for your bigger goals in your writing career or
And
life.
LiveJournal still exists. I see that.
It
It's not like
does,
that's
but
pretty
there was a
cool.
mass exodus of it a long time ago, like
Yeah,
for writers.
livejournal.com if writers want to check it out. And
Do you
and
remember
so
that? Did you ever see that when you were?
no, actually, no. It's
Oh,
kind of
it's
interesting.
huge,
I
especially in the
know.
children's book community. It was like,
That's so interesting.
yeah.
So that but that idea of live journaling is really blogging in essence.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so what now you've gotten from that news focus you had early on and
Yeah.
your writing. your creative writing focus still. You are using Substack. So let's talk about that. And I want to talk briefly about Facebook too.
Okay.
How did you? What brought you to Substack? What do you like about it? What's frustrating about it?
I think where I live, which is Mount Desert Island, as you know, but other people might not understand, is an island. It's a very large island that has an influx of tourists that come, and we have a award-winning weekly newspaper, and we have a news blogger who feels like he defines himself as a muckraker, and he's free, and the newspaper is paid. And then there's social media, and there are all these different compelling forces and issues like cruise ships and short-term rentals and all these local news things that can be very divisive in a community when there's power exchange and politics involved and just fear of everything. And so what we were seeing is that a lot of people were not necessarily getting the straight facts of the news in a timely manner because our award-winning newspaper is weekly. And so the other blogger is on Substack. So our community was already, at least a part of it, was already a little bit primed for this as a way to get news, which is very lucky. And so
Mhm.
what we did was we set up a Substack. And because I'm a worst case scenario person, we also created a WordPress site. And both of those host the Bar Harbor story. What you're seeing here is the Substack. And we chose Substack because he did it, and to me, it was an easy interface to use. Like it just seemed simple.
Yeah.
And we had no subscribers, and we did absolutely nothing to market it other than share it onto social media, each story when it happened. And it just built by word of mouth. I know that other Substackers will import their entire email list to build up whatever um, site they're using
Hmm.
on Substack. I don't know if that's what you did, but I know other people have, and that has pros and cons. So if you're suddenly, going about your day and you're suddenly getting daily emails from Carrie Andrew, I just made a mesh of our two names without opting in, that can be very frustrating, I guess. It can distance one of your readers or one of your potential subscribers if they don't know what's happening. And I've had that
Right.
happen to me multiple times from friends who have started Substacks. And so I think that that is a choice that people have to make and think of the pros and cons. And if they choose to do that, to have that very first email be, hey, I just put you on this list and you're going to be getting this. And that is another one of my tips about Substack is to be as open and honest and authentic in whatever kind of writing that you're doing to the people who are going to be your readers.
Did you start Bar Harbor Story or Live Happy and Write Better Now first?
I don't know.
Because you can have multiple, multiple
I'm
feeds.
yeah. I honestly Living Happy and Write Better Now is very similar to what I was putting on my own personal author web page.
Yeah.
And I think I started them very close, like the same year, which I believe was 2022, but I would have to double check. Um, and I'm terrible about times and dates, but I think that they were very, very, very close,
Yeah.
maybe simultaneously, but I
Okay.
don't know if you know, it might have been Living Happy was first.
But certainly, Write Better Now is a place for folks to go to if they're trying to get started.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's so Living Happy and Write Better Now is kind of two different aspects of what I used to put out on my blog and what I used to put out on LiveJournal, but I'm not as fun anymore, despite that cool dog. And that was about writing tips and life tips and how the two combine. And yeah, it's just about writing happy is really all over the place, but it's meant to give people the tools that they need to write better and live
Yeah.
happier lives, as I wrote there. You can see
Yeah.
why I'm a writer and not a speaker.
Now you mentioned with the Bar Harbor story how you got started. You were putting it out on social media, Facebook. I know you on. Are you on other places?
Um, we would share our stories to when we write a story on Substack. Substack has some very easy ways to share your story, and we would share our story to Facebook and to Instagram. We also share it now to Blue Sky, but we don't have a very large following there. But it only takes a second, and people have asked us to put it there. Um, and we just did that because we felt like it created a little bit of visibility and it was free because I am a very, very cheap person and I
Me
am
too.
very bad at investing in myself or my businesses. Yeah.
Me too.
Right.
Yeah, and how important? The one thing that I'm going to be talking to folks about is that it's. I think we think historically of writing and storytelling and even the news process as unidirectional. You or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
report or think, and we put something out and go boom.
Yeah.
How important is it? How important is the feedback? How important is it that it's a two-way street for you, the internet, the online stuff?
I think that all writing, even when you write a novel, is a two-way street. Like, so what happens is you, the writer, create something. Hopefully, you do it step by step and word by word and make your best product. But I know I certainly don't always. And then you let it go, right? And so we often feel like we've let it go, but we forget about the receipt of it. We forget that it's communication. All of writing and all of story, be it news or nonfiction or novels or poem, is your voice out in the world telling some other people some things. And then they take that in, and they may not always be able to communicate quickly back to you in the pre digital age, especially, or if it's a novel. But because of the accessibility of the internet and Substack and Facebook, that reality of your words have been let go and that your stories have been pushed outside of where you created them. And now they are sort of this other communal process of communication and of acceptance, and how it helps you realize how important each word is. Almost it helps you realize that when you say tree to some reader, that tree is going to be a pine tree, but so somebody in a different part of the world, it is definitely not going to be a pine tree. And how it makes you strengthen your own writing when you realize that. So in a weird positive way, I think that the internet allows you to realize more quickly what you've messed up, and also how to become a better writer or a more refined writer, and what it is in your story. Does that tree even matter if nobody understands that it's actually a maple tree? And things like that. But it's also a little bit more terrifying because you are open to criticism and trolls and
Yeah.
angry people and cognitive biases that you may not have even understood existed in your piece, or about your piece. And how, especially I'm sure for news, that like people will react very negatively in political times of heightened division
Right.
about one sideism versus the other sideism. So even if you're a local news agency and you write about a protest or show in a picture of the Bar Harbor Parade that there are protesters or political floats or signs or outfits or anything like that, people will come after you, which is instantly, even though all you're doing is reporting the news. And I think that that can be one of the most negative things for some of us who are sensitive and don't have very thick skins, and
Yeah.
about that immediacy of the digital communication and writing.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
any specific tips you can think of? One of the issues. I mean, if you look at the analytics, which can be very depressing. Um, Especially, well, I mean, when I post videos on Facebook or the like, the number of people who watch beyond 2 seconds is like zero. But with writing too, you have to catch readers instantaneously or not.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think through? Do you have one or two or three little tips quickly for folks
For
about
writers?
how to think about writing online that's distinct to that dynamic?
Yeah, I think that the use of white space, which is all of the space on your screen that is not actual words or photos, is so helpful for readability. There've been a lot of cognitive studies about how if a reader sees a big block of text, they often will not keep on going. They'll feel overwhelmed before they even get there. And it's just like this subconscious thing for not everyone, because everybody has a different brain, but for a lot of people. And so the more white space that you can have is very helpful. People who write for marketing often talk about how if you have subheaders and if you have photos, it helps the person reading, let's say a news story, because that doesn't work as well for novelists.
Mm.
It increases the pace of their reading, but it also makes them feel accomplished when they get to the next section of the story, and
Mm.
that works like a hook to keep them moving along. So white space, like, oh, this is the goofiest little.
But it's a good
Can't believe
example.
you pulled that one up. That's like the goofiest little story ever. But
But like
it's
this little sentence right here, yes, your pet. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
and so you've kind of done what you were just talking about.
yeah. I
That's
write for
good.
teens, so for novels, so it's like natural for me. But it's just those two things really help your reader feel good when they're reading it as well.
Right.
It's harder to do when you're making something more intellectual and analytical, but you can still do
Right.
it. And even simple things that novelists use, journalists can also use, such as making each dialogue moment of dialogue its own paragraph. Like all these things that you want to use so you don't hitch your reader's brain. Because the more times your reader's brain hitches when they're reading something, the less likely they are to go all the way through it because no one wants to have their brain constantly hitch. So things like
No.
white space, thinking about the pacing of your story, thinking about the pacing of the reader's eye, scanning the page, and dialogue tags and all those kind of things. All the tips of making you a good writer, to write novels also can make you a better writer writing nonfiction. And definitely this is true for the digital age when it's so
Right.
easy to click away because you haven't made the commitment of buying an entire book or
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
or taking it out from the library or, you know, that kind of thing. So it's even more pressing, I think, to try to make sure that you're making stories that are clear and concise. You don't use a lot of distancing words, like, and that there's an immediacy of the moment. And I think a lot of us forget about that because a lot of even Substack writing, not you, but a lot of Substack writing is very here's the hot tips of how to make $50,000 online in your first month, kind of things. And it's almost like those stories go too far into it,
Yeah.
into those quick paragraphs and those subheaders and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. But there's the
listicles. Remember the idea of
yeah,
listicles? Ay, ay, ay.
yes, yeah, and there's still like that element of listicles going on right now. And I think that you want to give people the information they deserve and that they need and respect their intelligence, but you also want to make it easy for them to get that information and feel immersed in the story or the topic that you're writing about. I mean, you're an expert at that. You're so good
Ah,
at that. So good.
ah, I just
So
every
good.
day it's just an experiment. I don't even know. Um,
You're
so when
experimenting
you say
so well. Yeah.
now, and I think that is part of it too. Just test driving is a way to find yourself.
Yeah.
You know, as you said earlier, finding your voice, I think, is a key part, and your sense of mission. You know, are you there to cheer people up? Are you there to give them action points? Are you there to
Yeah,
recount lessons from your own life? There's countless ways to use writing uh, creatively, productively, to make a better community that everyone will have to find their own place. But you don't find that unless you're sort of like pushing out and testing what works.
that's really true. It's
Well,
very true.
this is great. This is just a brief hello, and thank you so much for what you do and for spending
Oh,
the time.
thank you for what you do. You do a lot more than I do, and I really appreciate getting to talk to you.
Well, we all do what we can.
Well, that's true.